Good afternoon, everyone. We are now live on YouTube and we are also streaming live on Facebook. So we are encouraging and also we invite other students to watch us on our official Facebook page, Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Development. Again, you can watch us on YouTube. So please search MSU Maguindanao. Thank you.
While waiting, we're also encouraging everyone, all our students, to ask your questions. Again, our topic for this session is communication and engagement strategies for flexible learning. You may comment or you may type your questions in our chat box or to the comment section we have in Facebook. So if you have questions about communication and engagement strategies for flexible learning, you may ask that later to our keynote speaker. Maraming salamat. We would like to acknowledge the presence of our Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension and Development, Dr. Ramji Y. Odin. Good afternoon, Dr. Odin. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of the Mindanao State University System Student Regent from Mindanao State University, Naawan Campus, Regent Ron Denver Gonzalez. Good afternoon, Student Regent. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Piyo tamagan para sa ating mga kapatid na IPs, Mapia Malulum sa Lakanulangon. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Again, this is Sir Grant, and it is my honor to welcome everyone to the day 3, the last day of our webinar on experiencing inner peace in flexible learning.
Mayang hapon sa tanan. Good afternoon to all. This is Krishna, and we are inviting our students and other participants to join us in the session 3, Communication and Engagement Strategies for Flexible Learning through Zoom, and also through a live streaming of this webinar on our official Facebook page, Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Development. But before we proceed to our session proper, let us have a short recap of our session 1 and session 2. Okay, Sir Grant, can you share what happened and what was discussed last Wednesday?
Ayan, maraming salamat, Ma'am Krishna. Last Wednesday, August 12, 2020, ang simula ng ating webinar on experiencing inner peace and flexible learning. And we are so fortunate that we have our keynote speaker, Mr. Johnson K. Badawi, no, a student na nasa Costa Rica ngayon, a psychometrician and a local of Datu Udin Sinsuat, Maguindanao. His topic was about cultivating inner peace among the students in the new normal, a very significant topic, no, for all of us. He put emphasis on the mental health, telling us that mental health is not only for those mentally challenged individuals. Mental health is for everyone. Mental health is about everyone. So as students in the new normal, sabi ni Speaker Johnson, no, ni Johnson Badawi, you have to identify your stress. And after identifying what stresses you have to know your coping mechanisms. And yun yung mga dapat daw natin gawin. Coping mechanisms may be in many forms. No, we can meditate, we can talk to our friends, to our families, or you can find a very strong support system. Or you can also involve yourself to other activities in your community while following the measures we have to remain safe from the threats of COVID-19. Yan ang mga napag-usapan natin nung day 1 ng ating webinar. So kahapon, we have our day 2 and I think Ma'am Krishna will be able to give us the recap of the yesterday session.
Thank you so much, Sir Warren. For our session 2, titled Adopting to Non-Face-to-Face Mode of Instruction Due to Unprecedented Pandemic, the COVID-19, the Mindanao State University Maguindanao is compelled to adopt the non-face-to-face mode of instruction delivery in all levels of academic services. The Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Tomanda D. Antok, relayed the types of mode of instruction delivery. It could either be online or offline. Under the online mode, we have synchronous, wherein the class is conducted in a scheduled class hour via video or audio conferencing using online platforms. We also have the asynchronous, wherein learning materials are sent online. Students can study anywhere and anytime at their own pace. For the offline non face-to-face mode, we could either use printed modules or electronic modules. Yesterday, Dr. Antok reassured that the university is trying its best to cater the needs of all the students. Dr. Antok ended his speech by saying that ang MSU ay narito para tulungan kayo. Huwag kayong mangamba at matakot hanggang kaya pa hahanapan natin ng paraan mga anak. So I hope everyone was able to learn and acquire knowledge for the past 2 days. And we are very excited to know more sa ating third and last session for this webinar.
But before we proceed sa ating third and last session ng ating webinar, I think we will have an attendance check. Now, we want to see if all the colleges that we have in our university are represented. So once I call your college, we want you to either give us a thumbs up, click the thumbs up icon or the clap icon, or do a wave gamit ang inyong mga camera. No, magpa-cute tayo, smile and give us a wave. So let us begin with students, no, from the College of Arts and Sciences. Do you have students? Give us a wave. Students from the College of Arts and Sciences. Now we will have from the College of Public Affairs and Governance. Give us a wave or clap icon. Hit the clap icon. College of Education. Yung ating mga education students. Yan. So College of Fisheries. Give us a wave. And now we will have College of Forestry and Environmental Studies. And last one, we have from the College of Agriculture. Kung meron din tayong mga estudyante from Integrated Laboratory Science High School, both junior high school and senior high school, give us a wave din po. At yung ating mga estudyante from the graduate school. So, welcome again to the third day of our webinar on experiencing inner peace in flexible learning. So to give us more about the guidelines we have for this webinar, here is Ma'am Krishna again. Ma'am Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Sir Warren. For everyone's information, participants will be given e-certificates after they have filled out the satisfaction survey form. It will be sent through your email. Also, for the confirmation of your attendance, please comment your full name during the given time on Facebook Live at the end of this session. Also, keep your audio muted and if possible, turn on your video. If you have questions, please send them to our chat room or comment on our Facebook page, Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Development. Thank you.
Now to introduce the keynote speaker. Let us give a round of applause to the director of the Institute for Peace and Development in Mindanao of Mindanao State University, Maguindanao. Ladies and gents, engineer by Aljana Sinsuat Macalando.
Thank you, Sir Grant. Thank you, Ma'am Krishna. Good afternoon to you all. Our speaker for our last session is a process scientist and Kaizen practitioner who made a career out of improving business systems, processes, teams, and individuals. He gets the greatest sense of professional satisfaction and fulfillment in organizational development work and in teaching or coaching. He had performed the roles of a project manager for clients' process improvement initiatives and of a subject matter expert for consulting companies in their process science, supply chain management, and organizational development topics such as total quality management, Lean Six Sigma, training the trainers and supervisors training. He got tapped by the Australian government through its basic education sector transformation program to institute and to capacitate the regional and divisional offices of the Department of Education across the Philippines on the practice of continuous improvement. Currently, he is earning another graduate degree on distance education from University of the Philippines Open University and is pioneering online learning professor for Mapua University on its fully online graduate program on industrial engineering. If he looks familiar, that's because he has appeared on different TV commercials. Yes, it is my honor to present my charming college professor, Engineer Elisier Fantillo. Sir?
Okay. Ma'am, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. So good afternoon. No, I was really smiling in here. That was very, very, very kind. So okay, so let's get on to the topic at hand. So when Miss Mukalandong, or for me, I call her kasi Janix. So maybe kailangan ko pa talagang sanayin ng sarili ko. So anyways, so when Janice actually reached out to me to try to share with you regarding what the topic was, I was actually pleasantly surprised. The reason why is because my what you call my situation is a little bit unique. Kasi I started as an online student way back I think on 2017. So I'm taking. I'm actually on my thesis right now on masters in distance education. So I am also an online student. So for those students that are actually tuned in right now, I get you. Okay, so I get you. I understand whatever it is that you're feeling right now, because I'm sure I felt those feelings. I also had way back when I started becoming an online student. But it's quite unique because after 1 year becoming a student of online learning or distance education, which what will be adopted actually by the whole education system. Kaya ang terms na ginagamit nila, synchronous, asynchronous, flexible learning, and all of those stuff. Pero ang pinanggagalingan kasi noon is essentially distance education. Okay, so anyways, my point being is because is I was also an online student. At the same time, I am also an online learning facilitator. So right now, I'm actually wearing the hat of an online student. So what I'm about to share with you is essentially what I went through, no, as I gravitated or as I transitioned, no, from someone who's very familiar with face-to-face, face-to-face this education system to suddenly distance education. Okay, so let me share with you what I went through and what I've learned and what was my supposedly coping mechanism that allowed me to somehow no finish almost finishing it because I'm already in my thesis no. It's a 3 year program. So yeah, thesis na ako ngayon. So let me start now with my presentation. So it has been shared with you that sinasabi ng practically everybody say this is the new normal. I'd like to suggest to you, sure, it's a new normal, but I'd like to suggest to you an idea that maybe this is actually a better normal. I could say that to you right now. The reason why I could say that as fact is because as I've shared with you, I am also an online student and I'm also an online teacher. So when I was teaching my online thing or yung asynchronous version of teaching, I was informed by my experience as a distance education student also. So I've used that experience that I had to somehow get into the minds of an online student or a distance education student. And I was glad to find out that somehow that those things actually work. So this is one of the feedback mechanism that I had from one of my students. So I don't know if you could read it, but what struck me most about this whole thing was that yung sinabi niya, this was beyond expectation in an online class. At ang sinabi niya is that it's better or more than what he expected from a classroom learning. So whatever he was feeling, I also felt when I was actually an online student. So I was very glad to know that hindi lang pala ako yung makakaramdam no, naka-experience no. So I've allowed somebody else or enabled somebody else to actually feel the same thing. So as early as now, I'd like to clear that up. No? Whatever fear that you have or questions that you have that maybe it will not work. What if? I mean, those are natural things. Those are natural things. But I'm telling you also from a perspective of an online student, it's really different. No? It's really different. Okay, so let's move on to my next slide. As I've shared with you, okay, as I've shared with you, I'm also an online student. So this is actually what I see every time I go into my learning management system for UP. So yun. So this is what I see when I go to class in my UPOU class. Now, uh, the way UPOU or the way this thing was actually shared with us, online learning or distance education, flexible learning. When I use those terms, online learning, asynchronous learning, synchronous learning, flexible systems, I mean it this similarly because as long as the teacher and the student does not share the same time or the same physical space, that's also distance education. Since because of the situation that we are in, so not everybody is allowed no, to go to classroom and share the same physical space. So when I use flexible learning, asynchronous learning, or online learning or distance learning, parehas lang yung ibig kong sabihin. Now, anyways, so si UP, when they taught us how to do this, they actually made sure that there's always a component of digital and there's always a component of old school. Ano yung old school? Ito yung print. This is actually the study table I have at home. So every time my professors give me the learning objects or my lessons, they will send it us through our LMS. Since I'm relatively an older guy, so I tend to print out stuff first before I actually read. Before kasi I tried reading it through the screen, but I'm so used kasi of touching something on my hand and writing down notes. But that's me. So kung mapapansin nyo dito, I have lack of stocks of paper kasi I really printed out. Tapos, I also learned how to buy highlighters of different colors because that's how I study. That's how I study. And if you notice also, medyo gabi siya. Kasi our home, no, we're just four here. So my wife and I we got two kids. And my kids, when I was starting at that time, were still relatively small. So I have a 5-year-old then, and I have a 2-year-old before. So medyo alagain pa sila. So in order for me to really study, I have to really make time wherein they're no longer awake. So usually I study around 10 a.m. And at the start, I thought aantukin ako because aabot nga siya ng gabi na. After about 2 or 3 weeks of it, aba, nakikita ko na lang inaaraw na ako. Okay, so that was the first realization that I had. So sabi ko, may kaibahan pala talaga na if you are totally separated from sharing a physical space and you are allowed to study according to how you want to study, talaga palang magiging mabilis yung panahon. You will really not realize it. Ako na lang, I usually catch myself at that time. Mag-aalas 4 na pala, mag-aalas 3 na pala ng madaling araw. That it's time for me to ready to sleep. So why am I sharing with you that? It's because there is really a possibility that you will discover for yourself that you may be better learning something by yourself. Okay? So that's one of the insights that I actually had. Uy, pwede pala talaga siya. Ganun ang mangyari. That as you read, you reflect on it, mas malalim yung naiintindihan mo. Kasi nobody's there is around it. You really are into it. So that's one of the first things that I realized being an online student. So as I said, this was my typical setup at home. So I have my laptop, tapos I have my printer to print out a lot of things. I don't know if it's only true for UP, but my professors there they were really fond of giving us at least 200 pages of reading materials every week. So I've learned how to read actually because of this. Now, ito yung typical setup ko when I study. I like it with a little bit dark, wherein there's a lamp, just basically focus on what I'm actually reading. Somehow it gives me a sense of peace doing this thing that I'm really just really I'm concentrating. Okay. So as I said to you, I have my own reliable sets of highlighters, and I do highlight a lot of things. In fact, sometimes natutuwa pa nga ako kasi I will I will be able to see certain gems like this. No? So natutuwa ako kasi I laugh about it and I smile about it. Sabi ko, nga, yeah, that's very true. If your professor is really very smart, there is really a tendency that there is really a possibility that he may not be able to teach properly because he does not understand how hard it is for someone who is actually learning, because it was easy for them. So I was smiling when I actually realized that. Like, oh yeah, yeah. Anyways, that's something that I found out when I was left to my own self, that I do not need to hear somebody tell it to me. Parang while I'm reading it, it becomes more personal, and the lessons that I learn is really personal, meaning it's something that makes sense to me because I am by myself and I'm really just typically reading it. And what I'm learning, what I react to, it's something that is actually important to me. Meaning I do not need to I do not need to hurry up listening to someone. Kasi di ba, if your teacher is actually teaching, it's very fast. Sometimes your thought is still transfixed in one idea and you already move on to the next. And hindi mo siya manamnam what is actually is trying to say to you. But when you are actually reading something, you can actually go back to it over and over again and really sink in, you really let it sink into you. Oo nga, no? Oo nga. Kasi walang taong nagsasalita. So, walang tao na will get your attention because you're really by yourself. So that is one of the advantages and one of the benefits I realized when I was actually an online student. And I think, no, as you go through the experience too, I hope you also get those situations, those moments wherein you could really reflect on it. So when Janix actually told me, "Sir, please help me. Can you share something?" Sabi ko, okay. Since I'm only given a certain amount of time, let me just share with you certain insights that I got. At the beginning of my being an online student, this is one of my first insights when I was actually reading it. If you notice the one mark dito sa ano sa circle dito sa red, I was actually asking myself, bakit ba na-invento yung classroom in the first place? Pwede naman palang wala. So sabi ko, baka nakasanayan lang siguro talaga. So this was one of the first insights, the first questions that I actually asking myself when I was actually on my first term. Kasi it allowed me to say, I'm learning something while I was not actually in the classroom. So that is a 3-year-old insight that I have. So after that, bigla ko na-realize, maybe this is really the classroom of the future. It's an empty one. These are my insights way back in 2017, 2018. I mean, pandemic was definitely far off of our mind. Why? It's because all the students are actually outside, learning it from reality. So I just like to leave 3 thoughts with you. No? Tatlo lang. And I hope you do remember them. First one, as I've said to you, this is something that was given to me by my student now. It's actually a confirmation that what I receive as a student, I'm now able to enable somebody else to somehow have a similar experience. Now, let me just give you a context of this student. So this student was actually one of the people who got affected by the Taal volcano explosion. I don't know if you heard the news or you're still aware of it, but way back in January, Taal volcano exploded and there was ashfall actually that reached Metro Manila. But it was really terrible for people near the Taal volcano crater, and he was really affected by this. To make it even crazier, he was actually an OFW. He started coming from Saudi Arabia. So when our classes was starting, he was actually in Saudi Arabia. Now, why is that thing very important? It's important because you have to understand Saudi Arabia has a totally different time zone than ours. Okay, so we are ahead by 5 hours. So definitely, yung learning talaga niya has to really be done asynchronously. However, the one thing that I realized and what he actually embraced was this. If your previous speakers or resource speakers was actually sharing with you that you have to take care of your mental health, the first practical advice that I'd like for you to do is to really set aside time to study. You find a corner, find a place. You're really by yourself. Or maybe you ask somebody there at your home that for this particular time, I'd like to be by yourself. Because you really need to spend some time by yourself and actually go through the lessons. So this is one of the first things that I found out for myself as an online student that somehow no made me appreciate online or distance education or asynchronous learning to be for me to even consider it to be a better experience than a classroom experience. Kasi nga, I am by myself rereading, relearning the lessons. So that's one. But I'm not saying we should do away with synchronous. No? Kasi yung synchronous sessions naman kasi, may gamit kasi talaga siya. Pero because of our limitation in our infrastructure, di ba? As you know, while we were setting this thing up, marami pa tayong mga technical difficulties. So kung yung puso natin, nakaset na siya sa mindset na we're gonna do everything online, then we would we would we would feel discouraged kasi nga because of our infrastructures. No? However, there are ways to go around it. Kaya nga, as I said, doon sa UPOU and I think your school or your university has also shared that there will be asynchronous. So that's really that is not a lower quality type of education. Please do not take it that way. Ako, if you ask me as an online student, I will tell you that it is actually much, much better than a face-to-face class. I mean, just think about this. I mean, I'm also a professor. I'm also a professor. Di ba, meron tayong mga professors na one time, they're very energetic and they're very alive, di ba, in the classroom. Tapos may mga professors tayo na hindi mo alam kung asan sila or maybe pagod sila. Di ba? Yung mga ganun. Pagod sila and they don't feel like teaching. In asynchronous learning, wala yun. You wouldn't have something like that. You wouldn't ask someone to wait for you and to be alive. So, wala siyang ganun. Hindi ka makakakita ng ganun. And you are really by yourself and you're let the lesson speak to you. So, one of the practical advice that I could tell you that could really, really help you out, go through with this, set some time for study. Make a certain corner yourself. Make a corner for yourself. Really find a place that you could say, okay, when I do this, I will really be studying. As I said to you kanina, kaya makikita nyo kanina yung unang image ko. It is really an image of the lessons I need to read. Because it's really dark, but because that works for me. So that's 10 o'clock to about 1 or 2 p.m. 2 a.m. That works for me. The second thing that I'd like to leave with you is if there's one thing that I realized na sinadya by design by my professors in UP and I tried to do it and somehow as a student helped me out was this. Talagang sinabuhay nila yung mindset na learning is not a spectator sport. What do you mean by this? You will probably get ideas, you will probably get knowledge by watching something, right? But it doesn't become wisdom unless you apply it and you get certain insights because suddenly it becomes personal. And this is one of the things that I realized that was totally different from a classroom situation. if the lessons is properly structured and the student, no, ako noon as a student, may pinapabasa sa akin, tapos sinasabi sa akin ng professor ko, oh, write a 1,200 word essay about what you read. Eh, ma'am, ako po ay isang engineer, so sanay na sanay akong mag-compute. Diba? Then suddenly, here's my professor asking me to write a 1,200 essays. Hindi ko ata kaya yun. Ano kaya sasabihin ko doon? Tsaka bakit 1,200? Bakit? I could say that naman in 200 to 300 words. Why do I need to say it in 1,200? Then I realized after a while, doon ko na-realize na the reason why he wanted it pala to be written in 1,200 because he wants me to go deeper about the subject. Sabi ko, okay. Kaya doon ko siya na-appreciate because what they're allowing me to realize, I realize not by listening, but I take to get the knowledge because I'm doing something about what they taught me. Sabi ko, okay. So, ganito pala siya. So, why am I sharing that with you? Because this is one of the first transitions that you will probably gonna experience. I think people or professors or learning facilitator would be asking things for you to do. It's a good thing because when you do something by yourself, you own it. It becomes personal to you. And that's what's the most important part about education. It's not because somebody told you that this is what you should say, but because there was wisdom that you took in and you made it personal. And you can only make that thing personal and it makes sense to your whole self if you apply it. And that is one of the beautiful gems I received when I became an online student. Meaning, I heard this thing before. I know it in my mind. But hindi ko pa siya talaga naiintindihan until I actually have done it. Okay? So, uulitin ko po ulit. Asynchronous learning, flexible learning is not a second-rate learning education system from a classroom system. It's not. It's a similar learning system. It's not second-rate. It will produce the same thing in students. I could say that not because I'm a professor, but because I'm also an online student. Okay. So, some people frame our present situation as a harder version of what was in the past. However, I'd like to offer a different framing of our situation. Maybe it is not really harder. Maybe it's just a different set of complications. I meaning, di ba? Meaning, kahit naman nung pumapasok ka sa classroom, mahirap na din. Di ba? Pero rather than sabihin natin mas mahirap, maybe siguro in our head, in our mind, sabihin na lang natin na may komplikasyon yon nung pumapasok ako sa eskwelahan. Ngayong hindi ako physically papasok sa eskwelahan, hindi actually siya mas mahirap. Iba lang yung komplikasyon niya. So, dahil iba yung komplikasyon niya, iba yung insight na makukuha mo. Ako, that's something that I had to understand first. That it's really, hindi talaga siya mahirap. Hindi lang ako sanay sa komplikasyon na ibibigay nito. Pero matututunan ko to. Aaminin ko, during my first term, then people were actually asking me, so my professor were actually asking me to read a lot of stuff. I struggled for the first 2 or 3 weeks kasi nga, it's a totally different set of complication. Until I realized that up to the about 5 or 6 weeks into it, while doing it, bumibilis na ako. Nasasanay na ako. Na sumasama na loob ko kapag tapos na yung term. Bakit? Kasi wala na akong babasahin. Wala na akong gagawin. Tapos doon ko na-realize, since na-acquire ko na pala yung habit of reading stuff. So, bakit ko pa siya ibababa? Pagpatuloy ko na lang, kasi nakakatulong naman siya sa akin. And the third I'd like to leave with you is this. So, this is actually my notes. This is actually my notes. Because I have one course in UPOU. Ang tawag niya doon sa course na yun, lifelong learning. Okay, so there is this one particular course called lifelong learning. Pag sinabi mong lifelong learning, ibig sabihin, mula nung pinanganak ka hanggang sa pumunta ka na doon sa kabilang buhay, you have to be constantly learning. So, for those who are actually academics right now, listening and tapping into it, this concept is really not new, but it has become prominent now because of the changing environment that we have in. But anyways, why am I sharing this with you? Kasi nga, since I'm already reading and I'm marking it, no? So naglalagay ako ng sangkatutak na stabilo-boss. Actually, umabot din ako dun sa level na bumili pa ako ng sticker para maglagay ako ng stick-ons dun sa gilid para malaman ko na sa page na ito, there was something very important. Nag-progress pa ako dun. Umabot pa ako dun sa level na every time I read something, I have to make a drawing like this. What is this drawing? This drawing is like a summary that tells me what I read. Mas nakakatulong din siya sa akin kasi somehow, every time I study now, at the end of me studying, sinasummarize ko na siya rin kagad. Tapos sinusulat ko na din. So parang lumalabas ngayon, every time I review something already, ang gagawin ko na lang, titignan ko na lang yung drawing ko at gets ko na kung ano yung 50 pages na nandiyan dyan. Kaya sasabi ko, okay, so this is really pala a habit. Meaning, it's different from face-to-face or going to campus type of learning. But hindi ko siya matanggap at hindi ko na siya masabi na it's a second-rate type of learning because it's totally different. Actually, ako, if you can ask me as an online student, mas nag-enjoy nga ako nun. Kasi ngayon, I read something, I mark something, then after me reading something, I summarize something on top of it. So every time I go back, every time my professors ask me to do something about it, I already have something like this. So, why am I sharing with you those three things? So, ang pinaka-point lang na gusto ko sabihin sa inyo, it's just that what we're about to get into, it's just a different set of complications. It's not harder. It's just a different set of complications. And as we try to meet those challenges, we actually become better ourselves. This is one of the lessons that somehow made me see a lot of things when I was of online education and as a student also. The courage is the love of every done. As long as you feel that you could actually do it, whatever it is in front of us. Okay, as long as we have courage, we can actually handle that. So last two slides from me. I'd like to leave with you that this emergency is way too disruptive to choose to stay the same and not to improve ourselves. I say it as a student. I also say it as a professor or as an online facilitator. We will learn a lot of things from what we have right now. As in, there are a lot of assumptions that we say, it was just an assumption. Hindi pala siya ito. And the last slide would be this. During this time, we will be inventing a lot of things. I'm sure of it. So, ma'am, sirs, thank you very much for the time that you've given me to share with you what was my experience as an online student. So, if you have questions for me, please feel free to ask, and I'll answer them as best as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Fantillo. Thank you, sir, for imparting your experiences and knowledge. Indeed, maybe this new normal is a better normal. So, 3 points to remember in learning. First, set aside time to study, find a corner, find a place. Second, learning is not a spectator sport. And third, lifelong learning. So, sir, prior to this session, we have received questions, sir, from the
Please.
students. Yes, sir. So for the first question, sir, what strategies can you give to those students who has less knowledge in an online classes? Hello, sir. Okay. Um, okay. While waiting for our speaker, for the students, you can, if you have questions, you can send your questions through our chat room. And to those who are watching us live on Facebook, you can comment your questions so we may be able to raise it later while waiting for our speaker. Again, to those participants, to the students who are watching right now via Zoom, you can send us your questions through our chat room, or to those who are watching us live on Facebook, you can comment your questions while waiting for our speaker. Thank you.
We would also like to inform no, our participants, our viewers, na we are live po sa ating YouTube account, sa official YouTube account ng MSU Maguindanao. So just search MSU Maguindanao at lalabas po yung ating Day 3 webinar on experiencing inner peace in flexible learning. Doon po sa ating YouTube live, you can also comment no, your question. You can also type and send your question there para makita po ng aming mga kasama dito. And we can ask it to Professor Fantillo mamaya.
Also, for everyone's information, participants will be given e-certificate after they have filled out the satisfaction survey form. Yung survey satisfaction survey form po natin, ang link po nun ay ilalagay po natin sa ating official Facebook page, Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Development. And also, for the confirmation of your attendance, please comment your full name during the given time on Facebook Live at the end of each session, at the end of this session. Also, the Office of the Chancellor is initiating an Adopt a Student program. The office will be selecting students who will receive smartphones, which they can use for the blended learning classes. The guidelines and selection procedure will be given at the end of this session. The guidelines and the selection procedure will be given at the end of this session. Also, keep your audio muted, and if possible, turn on your video. If you have questions, again, please send them through our chat room or comment on our Facebook page. Thank you.
Ayan, so while waiting for Professor Fantillo, no, we will last August 12th through our University Chancellor, Dr. Bai Soraya Quisada Sinsuat, she announced the initiative of the Office of the Chancellor, an Adopt a Student program. I would like to reiterate the purpose of this program. Now, this program aims to help the indigent but deserving students of the university who do not have gadgets and resources to cope with the demands of flexible learning. Now, with this, the office will be selecting students who will receive smartphones. Ngayon, ano po yung qualifications natin para sa Adopt a Student program? First qualification that we have is, of course, a student should be a bona fide student of MSC Maguindanao who is enrolled to any of the programs offered by the university. So kahit anong program offered by the university, and he or she should be an official enrollee ng ating enrolled student ng ating university. Pangalawa, qualification, the student must be an indigent but deserving. No? And number three, must possess sincere academic interest as per validation of his or her program advisor. So we will, right after having the name of those students, we will go to your program advisors to ask them about you, no? To really verify if you are a deserving student, no, to avail this Adopt a Student program. Or so I would like to repeat, no, the qualifications, that the general qualifications that we have: a bona fide student of MSU Maguindanao who is enrolled to any of the programs offered by the university. Second, an indigent but deserving student. And number three, through your program advisors, we will be verifying if you possess a sincere academic interest. So yun po yung ating general qualifications. I think later, no, we will have the selection procedures. We will present the selection procedures. So abangan po din natin yun para mas malinaw. No? Marami na pong nagtatanong sa amin ngayon, Sir, how to avail the program announced by our Chancellor last Wednesday. So mamaya, malalaman natin yung selection procedures.
Hi, Sir Fans.
Yeah, hi. Hi, sorry. Yes, I'm back.
Hi,
Yes.
sir. Welcome back.
Yes, that's the ano eh, that's the challenge, the situation that we have every time we try to do this, what we call asynchronous.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah.
I agree, sir.
So anyways, may questions dito. What strategy is more efficient for synchronous type of learning? I don't know if that's, anyways, if this is for me. So may comment lang doon talaga is we're so used kasi uh, with with delivering classes synchronously inside the classroom. So, synchronous yun. Then suddenly you're not allowed to do that kasi nga because of health concerns. No? So what I would usually do in my class, so me now I'm speaking now as a online learning facilitator or a learning facilitator. Uh, Na-realize ko that my practice moved away from assessment of learning. Medyo pumunta ako doon sa assessment for learning. So this is a little bit of a technical term. Ibig sabihin, when I do assessments now, it's not really to to grade it. No, it's more about uh, when I have synchronous session, I would usually ask them to do some exams for me, and this exams is not really for marking, but it's like an input for me to know how am I supposed to design my next set of instructions. So parang lumalabas, I'm using now assessment as actually a tool for instruction. So ganon. Tapos as I've said nga kanina, since we really could not relay so much or rely so much on the quality of communication that we have in terms of our network communication connectivity natin, I really tend to assume that when I design learning session, I really design the learning session for asynchronous learning. Ibig sabihin, I give them my learning objects, and then from the learning objects that I send to them, I ask them to do something about it. And then you something to do about it. It has to be very personal or unique to their situation. And then once they send that unique to their situation output to me, then I use it now as a way to further their the instructions. So I'm moving away already from synchronous sessions. Kasi nga, if I rely on it the way we used to rely on it sa face-to-face, kaso nga dahil nga because of technological limitations, baka mamaya ma-frustrate lang yung students regarding that. So rather than hoping that it would be delivered synchronously, I think we should really start to think about it to deliver it in a synchronous version of it. Sir, can you give more information about these blended classes po? Yung blended classes is, the reason why they call it blended kasi is meron kasi siyang component ng online at meron kang component na sa classroom siya dinideliver. That's why they're calling it blended. So ganun yung ibig sabihin. No? Pero yung blended strategy naman talaga, siguro starting na nagkaroon na ng internet, starting na nauso yung Google, blended na talaga yung learning natin. We tend to just acknowledge it right now. Kasi nga, it's being thrust upon us. But actually, we've been in blended learning already. Siguro for over a decade na. Yun lang talaga ngayon, sasadyain lang natin siya because of the situation that we have right now. And now, yes.
Sir, we have another question here, sir.
Yes.
Basahin ko na lang po, sir. What strategies can you give to those students who has less knowledge in an online classes? What strategies can you give to those students who has less knowledge in an online classes?
Okay. Now, yung online classes naman kasi, ano siya is just simply a mode of delivery of the lessons. Ibig sabihin, you have a lesson, deliver mo siya using the internet. So, kaya mo siya tinatawag na online. Pero yung lesson mo naman na yon, pwede naman ipadala sa iyo yun sa papel, di ba? It's a it's like a pamphlet or I don't know, maybe a manual. Pwede naman siyang ganun. Pwede siyang ipadala sa iyo. Basahin mo. Meaning, you've got to understand the learning happen when the student with comes in contact with the lesson. So whether that lesson is delivered to you online or whether that lesson is delivered to you by reading a book, it really doesn't, wala naman talaga siyang pagkakaiba. So, wag nating isipin na yung online learning is something new. Kasi yung online learning na nababasa mo sa computer, sa konteksto ng pag-aaral, ano lang siya eh, it's a stimuli that is being presented in front of you so that you react. However, kahit yan ay computer screen or whether that is a piece of paper that you're being reading, it has the same effect. Kailangan you interact with it and you do something about it. So let's not get into the confusion of what is online learning. If you want to be technical about it, it's really just the delivery of the lessons na ginagawa mo siya online. Now, yung mga medyo progresibong mga countries, syempre medyo nauna na sila at saka magaganda yung mga infrastructure nila. As in, all of their lessons talagang nakalagay lang talaga sa internet. And if you want to learn it, you just click the video and watch it. Pero in the context of the Philippines, medyo malayo pa tayo doon. Kasi nga, because of our infrastructure. Pero I'm not saying that we're worse off. Kasi nga, all that is actually necessary is to actually, for us, to see what was the lesson, whether that is delivered to us online or whether that is delivered to us through a piece of paper. The important part there is how you interact with it and what you do with what's being presented to you.
Yes, sir. Okay na po ba, sir? Again, that's the first question that we have, sir. No, your answer is more of yung delivery lang naman yung nagkakaiba ngayon. But more if you really want to learn, no, it's really up to us. No, it may be online or through textbooks. Yung learning na andun pa rin naman talaga. Sir, you mentioned a while ago that there are countries na progresibo at naandyan na lahat yung mga references which they need. For example, na meron pong tanong yung aming mga estudyante since MSU Maguindanao, um, may mga areas po sa Maguindanao province na poor talaga yung internet connection. So the question, sir, is students with poor internet connection may struggle in adopting or with their lessons. No? How can we overcome such problems?
Ano, padala natin sila ng papel. Ibig sabihin, serious as I've said to you, as I shared with you, let me just open that particular slide that I have. Okay. So when UP was actually trying to share to me my lessons, I learned it by reading it. So ang design kasi niya is kung kasi ang pinaka number one kasi dapat na consideration when we are designing learning sessions is asan ba yung estudyante. So, dapat kung ang estudyante mahina yung internet or talagang wala siyang internet doon. So, the thing that we need to be doing now is we need to send them this really piece of paper, which is basically the lessons that you need to be learning. As in, that's why I medyo na-reframe nga yung aking pag-iisip doon. That yung 21st century learning pala talaga siya is really not about purely online learning. It's the 21st century education is about dapat kung nasaan yung estudyante, dapat you can design a learning system that could actually meet him or meet her. So sa tanong na yun, ang sagot doon would be kung talagang mahina yung internet, the workaround that you could really do is maybe the university could actually print those lessons for them so that maibigay talaga sa kanila yung modules na yun. Because that's one of the, I think, the most practical way of going around it.
And that's also, I think, sir, one of the options that we have in MSU Maguindanao. No? If the student cannot access the references, the modules online, we will be giving them printed copies of their modules, or if malayo po talaga sila, we will be coordinating with their local government units to assist us.
Yeah.
I think Ma'am Krishna has another question for you, Sir Professor Fantillo.
Sir, we have another question, sir. Can I have any tips, sir, from you on how can I easily start my reading habit, which you mentioned earlier? Since yung iba, sir, hindi naman ganun ka-used to sa ganun ako answer. But
Yeah, lalo na ako medyo sanay ka na sa Netflix ngayon. Tapos nag-binge watch ka na. Ade, okay. Ano talaga siya, how did I start to really have an enjoyment about it? For one kasi, obligated kasi akong basahin siya. Kasi I need to submit a paper regarding what I read. So, sa umpisa talaga, I admit I struggled. I mean, there was a time I was reading a 12-page paper. I was reading it already 8 times and I still do not understand it. This was during the first week. So sabi ko, tapos I'm reading an article, 12 pages, di ba? Tapos, titingnan ko yung lahat ng pinrenta ko. Yung mga bagay na pinrint ko, ang dami. Parang, at that time ata, the reading material was 300 pages ata. You know? Tapos here I am, I'm struggling with the 12-page. Sabi ko, parang gusto ko na atang mag-back out dito sa pinagagagawa na to. But what really helped me was this. And this is the genius I think of the professors that I had, which I'm really very grateful that I had them as my professors. Because yung pinagawa nila sa akin, okay, was really about what I read. Tapos, the lessons na binigay nila sa akin is something that I could really use. Ibig sabihin, kasi me as an adult learner, uh, something must be useful for me in order for me to be motivated to learn that. Kaya nga ngayon, yung ating sitwasyon, talaga mag-recalibrate kasi yung dalawang component ng education system. Ang recalibration sa teaching side, kailangan mo talaga mag-recalibrate doon kasi kailangan medyo I'm sorry if I'm gonna go to some technical terms. Medyo lalapit ka na doon sa social constructivist version of theory of learning. Tapos papunta naman doon sa kabilang side as a learner. Kung social constructivist na yung ginagawa ng teacher, for sure kasi yon ang ipapagawa sa yung trabaho is something that is personal to you. And because it is personal to you, it will have meaning. So, why am I sharing that? Why am I sharing that particular aspect very clearly? Kasi feeling ko yung tanong na ito, nagmumula siya doon sa experience niya na, sir, kahit binabasa ko naman to hindi ako makakuha ng habit. Kasi nga, the design of the lesson is not meaningful for you. So, that's the thing. You will have a habit of reading if what you're reading has meaning to you. And that is the burden now, actually, of the teaching. It's not enough anymore to say, oh, read pages 1 to 49. O, tapos, here's the multiple questions. Hindi na siya ganun kasi nga pag ginawa mo yun, it doesn't have any meaning. Diba? O, you read 1 to 49. O, dapat ito yung mga lessons na nakuha nyo. O, yung lessons na ito, how are you going to apply it in life? O, pag ganun yun, may meaning sa buhay mo yun. I'm telling you right now, if the lessons was taught that way, you will acquire the habit. And you will acquire it not knowing that you already have acquired it. So, ganun siya. I mean, I come from that school of thought that right now, what we have is a opportunity to make our learning systems better. That's where I'm coming from. That's it. I mean, it has a lot of challenges. Okay, but it is really now an opportunity to step back a bit and ask ourselves: when I was teaching in the past, was that the best way to teach? O nasanay lang ako? So, yun po. At from a perspective din of learner, was that the best way to learn? Especially now, because you have your college students. And when I say college students, adult learners na yan sila. Siyempre, iba yung challenges ng mga grade school, yung mga basic education. Kasi actually, sila yung talagang tatamaan. Kasi wala pa silang habit. Wala pa talaga doon. Pero for adults, somehow, it could be influenced. So, to answer that question, how do you acquire the habit? Uh, the work that you have to be doing must be meaningful for you. The second component of that answer is that dapat the teacher when they ask you to do something, what they're asking you to do must be meaningful also to you. So ganun siya. Like, sorry, medyo magpupot po ako ng bangko. Yung kaninang insight ng estudyante ko, that particular class is supply chain management. So, supply chain management, most people think purely mathematics siya, all of those stuff. No. Well, it has math on it. But the math is really more applied math. Ibig sabihin, you compute this, now that you have the right answer, saan mo siya gagamitin? So, the learning sessions was geared towards it's important that you get the right number. But now that you have the right number, how are you going to use it? So yung how are you going to use this information, doon nagkakaroon kasi ng dimension of personalization at nagkakaroon siya ng meaning. So maybe that answer is more for the professors. So yun na po.
Thank you, sir. I actually agree with you, sir. No, I'm a law student myself. No, so if what you're reading has meaning to you, you will indeed acquire a habit. Indeed. So, sir, meron pong another question dito, sir. As an online professor, what do you think is the best strategy for teachers to help students who right now are struggling in their tools and ways to be on class? Ano po sa tingin niyo yung best strategy, sir, para sa mga teachers naman po, sir?
On how to ensure that the the students join,
Yes.
talagang magpatuloy sila. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the first answer to that question is what you're actually doing right now. Kasi I'm talking about my experience na sa Mapua kasi siyempre in CR suddenly biglang na lockdown. Actually buong Pilipinas suddenly biglang na lockdown. So it was very abrupt. Then suddenly no choice lahat ng tao but to do this thing online or to do this thing in distance education or to have a totally different types of pedagogy. This was March. Suddenly biglang bawal. So yung estudyante biglang nagulat. Okay? Nagulat siya. Meaning nangapa. Tapos yung eskwelahan din, nangapa din sila. So sabay-sabay sila nangangapa. Now, what we found to be a helpful thing to do is we really need to set, for example, the university or the school or the academic institution needs to set a minimum requirement para sa mga estudyante kung ano dapat ang meron sa kanila. Kasi di ba tayo, nung nasa university tayo, as an administrator, kaya nga nagkakaroon ng standard kung anong size ba dapat ng classroom, di ba? So we created that particular standard already, di ba? So what I'm just trying to say lang is that somehow we need to have a set of standard also for our students. Ano ba dapat yung meron sa kanila? Okay, now, sir, iba-iba yung mga sitwasyon nila eh. So, kailangan natin maintindihan ano yung ibig sabihin ng iba-ibang sitwasyon. So, kailangan natin siyang ma-identify kung ano yung iba-ibang sitwasyon. Kasi dati, yung style ng university, pinantay-pantay natin lahat ng sitwasyon. Paano natin ginawa yun? Nag-set tayo ng standard ng classroom kung anong size. O dapat 1 by 1 meter per student. O dapat ganito yung lighting niyan, ganun. So, we set the environment standard. Ngayon, babalik rin natin siya ngayon. Paano baliktad? Let's identify ano ba yung mga different situations ng mga estudyante natin. Tapos, sa bawat different situation ng estudyante natin, we need to come up with a standard on each of those situations. So based on what they have, we work back. Kaya maganda yung idea natin na tanggap na sa utak natin. May synchronous, may asynchronous. Kasi lumalabas doon sa bawat sitwasyon. Maybe some pwede na talagang mag-online because maybe they have such a facility. Diba? Paano kung wala silang facility? Ganun. So dapat hahanap ka ngayon. Pero paano ka makakapag-set na kung hindi mo alam kung ano yung mga different situations? Now, I'm not saying I kind of understand where you are, but I just have a snapshot of, of where Maguindanao is. What's in Maguindanao? For one, kasi as Ms. Macalandong was sharing to you kanina, I had the chance kasi to work around the Mindanao area, the Maguindanao, the Cotabato area, I forgot, in fact, even the Zamboanga, the Soxargen area. So, I kind of have an understanding na talagang medyo hindi talaga siya homogeneous. So, talagang iba-iba talaga siya. So, I think that's the work of the university. Trying to find out kung ano ba yung mga different situation. And then, from those different situation, to design back something based on the situation. Ano talaga po? May work po talaga. May work po talaga. Kasi kami kahit po sa Mapua, we've invested so much already on the IT structure. Pero lumalabas pa din yung mga situations doon kasi yung mga estudyante, sometimes the connection is not good. So again, you have to go around and figure out how are you supposed to help those students. So yun po.
Thank you po, sir. Thank you for that wonderful answer, sir. No? Yung we should first identify kung ano yung iba't ibang situations, and then once identified, we need to come up with a standard kasi iba-iba naman yung parang nangyayari, i-work back na lang po natin. So, sir, I think Mr. Grant Warren has another question, sir. Sir
Yes,
Grant?
yes po.
Sir, but before we proceed with the question, I think we also have other professors and college instructors na nanonood na kasama natin dito sa ating webinar. And that's a very good point, sir, no? Specifying yung roles, yung malaking role po talaga ng faculty members to assure that students are learning in a manner na na-deliver natin yung instruction ng maayos. At the same time, lahat sila kasama natin sa pag-aaral. Considering that we have students na medyo hirap. Okay, sir. I think this will be the last question. This is a bit medyo personality, yung uri ng mga estudyante meron tayo. According to one of our students, no, meron daw po kasing mga estudyante na they are extroverts. Sanay sila sanay sila sa maraming tao, no, yung energy ay palabas. Ngayon, since we shifted into a different mode of instruction, medyo inaamin nila na baka daw maninibago sila. So the question is how to any tips to avoid anxiety or feeling of isolation dito sa new mode of instruction?
Okay. I don't know if this will work on your end. If this thing will work on your end. Sa klase ko kasi right now, sa klase ko, sa, sa Mapua. So, ang pinapagawa kong activity sa kanila para sa mga estudyante ko, extrovert na yun. So, sa mga teachers din na nakikinig. So mga teachers, you're familiar with the term flip classroom. Flip, baliktad, no? Ibig sabihin, rather than the teacher telling the story, you let the student tell the lesson. May value yun from the perspective of from the perspective muna ng professor. Okay, kunyari may learning material ka, binigay mo ngayon doon sa estudyante, tapos sinabi mo sa estudyante, please tell me what you've learned. So papaliktad. Maganda yun kasi suddenly may learning activity kang pinagawa, tapos yung learning activity na pinagawa mo, automatic assessment na rin para malaman mo kung ano ba yung nakuha niya. So parang instead na ikaw yung magturo ng ganito kahaba, dahil tinuturo niya sa yung pabalik, medyo nalalaman mo na mukhang kulang lang sa dito. Diba? So, in essence, that you could use. Okay. However, dinagdagan ko pa yung component para nga medyo masaya para sa mga estudyante ko. I don't know if this thing will work in your situation. But for my situation kasi, may pinapagawa ako sa mga estudyante ko. Ang tawag ko doon, pecha-kucha. Okay. Ang pecha-kucha is a Japanese term meaning storytelling. So, ibig sabihin, pasa sila and then they create a PowerPoint presentation. Tapos yung PowerPoint presentation na yun, para malaman ko talaga na sila yung gumagawa, I ask them to make a PowerPoint presentation. Tapos, I need to see their face doon sa pinakataas ng PowerPoint, explaining what it is. Tapos, I will ask them, sige, upload nyo yan sa learning management system. Yung sa Mapua kasi, Blackboard yun. So, we're using Blackboard as our learning management system. Tapos, sinabi ko sa kanila, yan, nakikita ko na kung, when I'm watching it, nakikita ko na ngayon kung ano yung nakuha nila. Tapos, sabi ko sa kanila, sige, I would want you to facilitate this particular class. So far po, I've been doing it for 8 times kasi ang Mapua kasi has 8 terms in a year. So I'm already going to my 3rd year doing. The feedback that I've received from across the board was that for one, they like it kasi they're more involved in how knowledge was created. Tapos I hear, meaning me as a professor, I hear how they're constructing it and somehow they feel that they're connected to it. Tapos at the same time, dahil nga mukha nila yun nandoon, nakikita, nagkakaroon talaga ng ganong dimension na nagiging conscious sila kung paano sila magsalita, yung mga ganon. So nagkakaroon ng banter din doon sa discussion boards namin. So ganon that's how I handled yung ganong klase sitwasyon. No? But again, I do not know if that will actually work for you kasi nga because of your infrastructure. Pero that's how I move around that situation para ma-ensure ko din na yung social presence nila nararamdaman. Kasi ganun din common din at age of 16, 17, or 18 yung mga estudyante natin. Meaning, isipin mo lang din naman dati, di ba, nung college ka, 17 or 18, ano ba yung gusto mo talagang makita pag pumunta sa college? Gusto mo makita mo yung mga classmates mo. So, medyo sinimulate lang natin yun kasi instead na personal mo siya pinapagawa, you're actually asking them to just create a picture for you. So far, the feedback that I received from that particular practice, I mean, it's very encouraging. They're actually telling me that I should even push it even further. So, yun ba?
Okay, sir. Maraming salamat. Professor Elisier Fantillo, no, that's a good one. Petsa Hutsa, No, that's something that we can also apply ano sa
Please,
ataming mga estudyante.
please, go with, ano na, that's not mine. Pinamana din sa akin yan ng professor ko na medyo nilagyan ko lang siya ng twist, no? But
Yes, we'll try
that,
to look at that one, Sir Fantilio, no? And we'll try to see if it is applicable to our students, especially in this new mode of instruction. Ayan, maraming salamat. I think that's the end of our open forum. Palakpakan po natin ang ating keynote speaker, Professor Elisier Fantillo. Sir, we will be awarding, no, virtual awarding of the certificate of recognition. So can I ask Ma'am Krishna? Ayan. So allow me to read the content of our certificate. No? Mindanao State University, Maguindanao, Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Development. Certificate of Recognition is awarded to Elisier Fantillo for virtually sharing his expertise during the webinar series titled Communication and Engagement Strategies for Flexible Learning on 14th of August 2020 at 1 p.m. via Zoom and Facebook Live. Signed by our Chancellor, Dr. Bai Saraya Quisada Singswat, and signed by our Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Development, Dr. Ramji Y. Odi. Maraming salamat. Participants, bigyan natin ng masigabong palakpakan in the comfort of your homes. At kung nasaan man kayo ngayon, you can also hit the clap icon or the thumbs up icon. Palakpakan po natin Professor Elisier Fantillo.
salamat po. Thank you po for the opportunity din po. Thank you for this opportunity and the privilege to share with you.
Once
Thank
again, thank you, Engineer Elisier Fantillo. Sir, any last words of encouragement na lang po para sa ating mga students and teachers po, sir?
Okay. Sa ano po, sa mga estudyante, me
Opo.
also, coming off also as an online student, meaning it's really different. That's all I'm gonna be saying to you. It's different, but it is not necessarily less. In my experience, what you're gonna embark on, it could even be a better way of learning. I could attest to that as an online student myself, and to learn it at my age, to be learning again, to be a student again. My mind was really exploding. Kasi nga, I am by myself at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and my imagination was really running wild. So again, maybe it was because of modality, or maybe because that was also my professor short, because they really designed it very well. And to the professors, like me, I also am with you, sirs. Among a lot of things that you have framed our situation, idagdag niyo po itong pananaw na to. This is the first time in the history of a program delivery of education na gagawin po natin. Some of us will probably say, nakasanayan ko na ito. Okay lang yun. But please, for those people who see this opportunity to really reassess how learning is happening, how we should really support learning, let your voices be heard. Because this is the proper time to really reassess how can we make learning more fluid. Meaning, how could we let our students feel our presence, even if we're not really physically present? That's a very creative way of doing it, and nobody knows it yet how we're going to be. There are a lot of theories about it, no? But it is still. Sabi nga nila, di ba? If everything is uncertain, therefore everything probable and possible. It's just how you do. So, yun na po. Maraming salamat.
Once again, sir, thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and for sharing your knowledge and experience. And now, before we proceed to the closing remarks, I would just like to remind all the participants, our students, that the guidelines and the procedure on the Adopt a Student program will be given by Mr. Grant Warren after the closing remarks. Okay, once again, after the closing remarks, the Adopt a Student program, the procedures and the guidelines will be given by Sir Grant Warren. And now, help me welcome the Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension and Development, Dr. Ramji Wayuddin, for his closing remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you, Krishna. Um, Before anything else, congratulations everyone for such a successful webinar for the past few days. I'm very happy that we are now finally ready to welcome the first semester of this school year, as we started off with this webinars series of webinars to prepare our students in the new normal. And after months of being closed due to the mandatory isolation measures, we are now finally ready to serve our students, but under the new normal, to make sure that we don't compromise the safety of everyone amid the COVID pandemic. The MSU Maguindanao, like many other schools, have explored a variety of processes to support our admissions and our enrollment procedures, our subject and course delivery, and as well as prepare for the measures, new strategies to administer our examinations in order to minimize the risk of the COVID. And with this, the technology plays a very important role to help us, the MSU Maguindanao, deliver our mandates and our services to our students. Conducting webinars like this leverages our campus efforts to adapt to the new normal, or should I say the better normal. And with that, I would like to congratulate everyone. I would also like to congratulate also and express my gratitude to our moderator, Grant Warren Lu and Krishna Abilyar. And also my gratitude also and congratulations to the director of the Institute for Peace and Development Management, Ms. Bai Aljana Makalandong. And also, this activity wouldn't be successful without our esteemed speakers. To start with, our speaker for the first session, Cultivating Inner Peace Among Students in the New Normal. Thank you to Mr. John Badawi for giving our students the tips to be mentally healthy amid the pandemic, and also giving us the steps on how to handle stress very well, and giving us also tips on how to cope up with all the stress that we are encountering nowadays. And also, I would like to thank our Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Tumanda Diantok, for delivering or for giving us a talk about adapting to non-face-to-face mode of instruction in MSU Maguindanao, and for also assuring our students that the MSU Maguindanao is doing its best to cater to the needs of our students as we all adapt to the new or the better normal. And lastly, I would like to express my thanks to Professor Engineer Elisier Fantillo, sir. Thank you so much for giving us your insights and your expertise in delivering your topic entitled Communication and Engagement Strategies for Flexible Learning. Thank you for giving us a very sensible and practical strategies to adapt to the better normal, and also to adapt to better learning amid the pandemic. not just to our students and also to our faculty who are now with us this afternoon. And lastly, I would like to express my thanks and gratitude also to our dear Chancellor, Dr. Soraya Quesada Sinswat, for the usual support she's been giving us, the Office of the Vice Chancellor, for research, extension, and development affairs. And and lastly, thank you to our MSU Maguindanao students for taking your time and for participating this webinars. This activity is really for you, our dear students. And with that, I would like to be one with you. I remember sabi nila dati, pagka MSU once ka, kahit saan ka mapunta, you will always survive. And so I would like to leave you this message that what we are going on, what we are experiencing right now, COVID lang yan, MSU once tayo, ato ka MSU. Maraming salamat and congratulations everyone.
And maraming salamat, our Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Development, Dr. Ramji Y. Udin. That's a very nice line, no? Sa dulo, very empowering. COVID lang yan. MSU wants tayo. We are equipped with skills to fight against COVID-19. At lalo na and now we will be calling it a better normal. No? We will try to do our best to cope with the demands of the better normal. Now, as one of our responses, no, dito sa paparating na semester, we will now be presenting the guidelines and the selection procedures ng ating Adopt a Student program. Kanina, nabanggit ko na po yung ating general qualifications, but I would like to repeat it now. Una, a bona fide student of MSU Maguindanao enrolled in any of the different programs we have in the university. Pangalawa, the student must be an indigent but very deserving student. At pangatlo, through your program advisors, no, you should possess a sincere academic interest. Now, ang tanong ng karamihan, sir, how to avail this program? Can I ask one of our staff here to share screen? To share screen the selection procedures that we have. This one, maraming salamat, Ma'am Eliza. Now, Mindanao State University, Maguindanao, adopt a student program, the selection procedure. First, we believe na yung mga pinaka-deserving na estudyante cannot sign up for themselves because they do not have gadgets, they do not have resources. So we are encouraging our students who have these gadgets and resources to take responsibility for your classmates, to do something for them. So you will be signing up your friend, yung mga kakilala natin na deserving maka-avail ng Adopt a Student ng cellphones from the Office of the Chancellor. Through you, no, you will sign up for your friend via Google Form. We will be uploading mamaya yung ating Google Form for this program sa ating official page, no, sa official page ng MSU Maguindanao. Pangalawa, your friend details, right after signing up, your friend details are sent to the registrar for validation. Siyempre, aalamin muna namin kung estudyante ba talaga yung pangalan na ibinigay ninyo sa Google Form. Pangatlo, after the validation of our campus registrar, no, the validated friend details will be sent to the program advisor for assessment and for recommendation. Pang-apat, step 4, Office of the Chancellor will again verify details of your friend. No, aalamin talaga namin, no, because we really want na yung mga estudyanteng makaka-avail ng program na to are very deserving students. No, pang-5, your friend's application is approved and by then you and your friend will be informed on the application. So again, it's our time, no, to help our classmates. Yung merong mga cellphones na at sa tingin naman nilang kaya na to go sa ating blended learning, ibigay natin sa mas mga nangangailangan. I'd like to repeat, sign up for your friend via Google Form, which will be uploaded later. Second one, registrar will validate the name of the friend that you have sent us. Third, your program advisor will do their part through assessment and recommendation. Fourth, the Office of the Chancellor will again verify these details. Fifth, hopefully your friend's application is approved. At pang-anim, we will be informing you that you will be availing the program of our Chancellor. So, ayun, mamaya po, we will be uploading the Google form mamaya sa ating official page, ang MSU Maguindanao at MSU Mag official page. So I think, Ma'am Krishna, meron ka bang idadagdag?
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Warren. May I request all the students, lahat ng nanonood via Zoom, can you please turn on your video? Magkakaroon po tayo ng photo op. Ang ating director of the IPDM na po ang bahala. So, paki-open na lang po yung mga videos ninyo para makita namin kayo. Once again, thank you sa lahat ng nag-participate. Thank you sa ating Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension and Development, and even kay Engineer Fantillo. Yan, nakikita ko na po yung mga videos, mga faces ninyo. Yan, smile na lang po tayo. Are we ready? Ayan, please turn on your video and give your best smile. Okay na ba, Ma'am Jay?
And we would also like to remind everyone na meron tayong evaluation form. Nasa comment section siya, nasa chat room siya. So to get your e-certificate, please fill it out. Fill out the evaluation form that we have. So once again, palakpakan po natin ang ang Institute for Peace and Development in Mindanao for a very successful webinar on experiencing inner peace and flexible learning. Once again, this is Grant Warren D. Lu.
And this is Larvera Krishna M. Abelyar, your moderators for the past days and for today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Maraming salamat. God bless you all.
Thank you.